When floods struck my home, I discovered an incredible truth. My son's fiancée demanded privacy. Ruth stood in the ruins of what once was her family home, the remnants of her life scattered among sodden heaps. The floodwaters had receded, but the chaos left behind felt insurmountable. Each fragment of displaced furniture was like a piece of her heart, and as a nurse, she took care to patch up everyone around her. Yet there was no protocol for healing this. With each step through the debris, she felt her heartbeat throbbing in her throat, unease creeping closer. Was this the future she envisioned for herself and her boy, Jake, staring back at her through this tangled mess? With her mind racing, Ruth picked up a mud-soaked photograph of Jake playing baseball. The fresh challenge of motherhood weighed on her. She'd worked tirelessly as a single parent to instill integrity and hard work in her son. Now he was engaged to Emma, a girl Ruth barely knew. In the back of her mind, a knot coiled tighter. What did he really see in her? Did he know the stories hidden behind Emma's charming smile? Eventually, Ruth assembled with her neighbors to sift through the debris. Their laughter was still audible beneath the weight of their shared grief, but Ruth's heart was heavy with another kind of burden. She glanced over at Emma, who sat on the periphery, a slight distance reflecting the tension that flickered like the wind. With each shared word, she felt a sting of doubt. Emma seemed like a puzzle without a picture on the box. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Later that evening, the weight of worry consumed her as she flipped through the charred remains of family albums. An unsettling discovery gripped her. Emma had never been honest with them about her background. All those sweet words exchanged now felt tainted, a carefully crafted illusion created to shield her lavish upbringing. Ruth's chest tightened with a deep-rooted instinct, pressing against her ribcage like an iron weight. What kind of future was Emma envisioning for her son? What foundation was their love really built upon? Torn between protecting Jake and urging him toward the truth, Ruth felt desperation claw at her heart. What seemed like a fortuitous match began to feel more like a betrayal. Thoughts intersected as her hands trembled, each curl of her fingers underscoring the judgment tightening inside her. She had sacrificed everything for her family, her sweat and tears woven into each moment of Jake's life. To see him gravitate toward a life juxtaposed against her values sent electric jolts of fury through her veins. As the days wore on, Ruth couldn't shake the sense of urgency. The community's struggles mirrored her own, and the dissonance left her raw and exposed. With pained determination, she began her quiet investigation, reaching out to people from Emma's past, skirting the edges of social niceties. Each new confidant presented nuanced truths that unraveled the pristine vision of Emma she had held on to, an intricate web encompassing ambition and silence. Standing at the bow of this journey with Jake's future now at stake, Ruth dreaded what lay ahead. A thought loomed. Every decision she made would alter the course of their family altogether. Just as the storm clouds swept back into the Texas sky, Jake rounded the corner, his entrance shrouded in uncertainty. Ruth's heart raced, a surge of conflict tightening around her like a vice. Standing on the precipice of choosing between motherly love and a gut instinct that urged her to confront Emma, she knew the moment of reckoning was near. The air felt dense in the aftermath of the flood, but now, standing in the skeletal remains of her life, Ruth felt an energy crackle within her. The chaos left its physical mark, yet somehow it ignited a resolve she hadn't quite embraced before. As Jake approached, uncertainty shadowing his features, she swallowed hard. This was her chance, the moment when she could either reinforce their bond or risk fracturing it altogether. "Mom?" Jake looked around, taking in the wreckage, then focusing on her. His eyes held a mix of worry and confusion. "Are you okay?" It was a simple question, but it struck like lightning through her thoughts. Ruth knew she wasn't okay, yet her instinct screamed at her to protect him, to bolster his spirits. "I'm fine, honey," she replied, though the lie felt weighty and hollow against the raw truth she grappled with inside. "Just sorting things out." She watched him process her words, an analytical mind just like hers slowly piecing together a picture that was increasingly murky. Would he understand the complexity brewing between her fears for him and her protective instinct? "About Emma," he started cautiously, as if treading on fragile ground. Ruth steeled herself. This was crucial territory. They were both navigating a minefield, and one misstep could detonate a dynamic that had taken years to establish. "What about her?" Ruth pushed herself to appear casual, though every nerve was on high alert. I don't know how to say this." Jake paused, running a hand through his hair, a nervous tic she recognized. "I love her, Mom. I really do." The words hit her harder than anticipated. Ruth's heart twisted as she considered the weight of his affection against the newfound truths she held. Love often operated within blind spots, leaving rationalities obscured. "I can see that," she replied, softer now, seeing the plea for understanding in his eyes. "But do you truly know her? I mean, where she came from? What drives her?" Jake's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" "No, I'm not trying to make you doubt her," she rushed to clarify, guilt creeping in at the thought of straying too far into judgment. "It's just, I've heard things from people who know her background, about her family, her lifestyle. It's not what you think." "Her family?" Jake echoed, incredulous. "What do you know?" Ruth hesitated, the weight of information pressing against her instincts. Did she expose the intricacies of Emma's previous life, or could she risk shattering Jake's perception of the woman he adored? "Just things that make me question if this relationship is built on the right foundation." "But Mom," he exclaimed, frustration creeping into his voice. "People are made up of more than just their backgrounds. You taught me that." It stung, his words echoing the very principles she championed. Yet this felt different. "Jake, I understand your passion for her, but you need to take a step back. Love should have honesty and depth. Are you certain these qualities are there?" The silence thickened, laden with questions neither could articulate. As she surveyed the remnants of their past, Ruth recognized a profound truth. By confronting this conflict, she wasn't just defending her son. She was laying a foundation for her family's future. It would take strength, both of them pushing through the veil of what was comfortable to reach the heart of what mattered. For Jake to navigate this new reality alongside her, he would need to step into his own strength. Ruth's mind raced with the implications, and for the first time, a plan began to form, not just for herself, but for Jake's evolution. "Mom?" Jake prompted again, breaking the tension. "What do we do now?" The answer tumbled from her lips, sharper and more defined than she expected. "We find out the truth together, but it's going to require courage, honesty, and maybe confronting Emma." Jake's eyes widened, and with that simple action, Ruth saw a flicker of resolve mirrored in her son's demeanor. She knew then that their first step might lead to revelations neither anticipated. The weight of the moment hung in the air. This was more than just about Emma. It was about discovering their strength as a family, testing uncharted waters. Together, they would swim through the treacherous depths that lay ahead, because the time had come to face whatever truths waited for them on the other side. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting an orange hue over the torn landscape. Ruth could feel the weight of the day pressing on her, but she also sensed a newfound clarity weaving its way through the chaos. As she looked down at Jake, her determination morphed into a fiery resolve to guide him through this critical moment. "Let's talk to Emma," she said, her voice steady, though inside she was a storm of apprehensions. Ruth understood that transparency was crucial, but her heart raced at the thought of confronting Jake's love. The risk of losing him, of breaking whatever tender threads connected them, loomed large. "Really?" Jake shot back, a mixture of surprise and eagerness in his expression. "You mean it?" "Yes." Even as she spoke those words, doubt coiled within her. What would they discover? Would the truths unveil a darkness she wasn't prepared to face? They decided to meet Emma at the local cafe, a spot filled with the remnants of normalcy in the wake of disruption. As they walked, Jake's enthusiasm tempered by uncertainty, Ruth reflected on the situation. The cafe buzzed with chatter and laughter, a stark contrast to the silence between her and Jake. She recognized that this was more than just about Emma. It was about their journey, their transformation amidst the wreckage. Ruth needed to approach the conversation with nimbleness. She mentally rehearsed her questions, envisaging a dialogue that danced delicately between honesty and empathy. She needed to allow Jake to hold his ground without pulling him into contentious territory. Upon entering the cafe, they found Emma sitting alone at a small table, her fingers idly tracing the rim of her coffee cup. She looked up as they approached, her expression shifting from surprise to guarded apprehension. Ruth noted the change, the faint flicker of unease in Emma's eyes. Part of her wondered how long Emma had been preemptively stacking her walls, creating a fortress in anticipation of this conversation. "Hey, Emma," Jake greeted her, his smile warm yet uncertain. "Hey," Emma returned, her voice steady despite the tension thickening the air. "What's going on?" Ruth stepped forward, feeling the need to establish a tone of sincerity. "We wanted to talk to you about everything," she started, her heart hammering with each word, wondering how Emma would respond under this unyielding scrutiny. Jake shifted beside Ruth, glancing between the two women. "I think it's important to understand each other better." His words dripped with both vulnerability and determination, demonstrating the delicate balance he sought. Emma nodded, taking a deep breath, her guard beginning to slip as the flicker of vulnerability replaced her earlier composure. "I agree. There's something you should both know." The air thickened, pulsating with anticipation. Ruth couldn't afford to let her fears cloud the moment. This was about fostering connection and unearthing truths. As Emma began to speak, Ruth pressed her hands together, steeling herself against anxiety swelling within. "I grew up in a broken family. My past is complicated, and I've tried to keep it private," Emma confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "But that doesn't define who I am now." Ruth's heart sank a little. Could this be the breakthrough they needed? Or the unraveling of everything? She could see Jake's expression shifting, as if he was processing a newfound understanding. Would he accept the complexities and shadows that came with love? "Emma," he began, a tremor in his voice, "I want to understand you completely, not just the parts you're scared to show." The tone held earnestness, a commitment to something deeper. As the conversation unfolded, Ruth felt a sudden pang of protectiveness mixed with pride for her son. Jake's courage, a reflection of her own journey, had illuminated the weight of vulnerability, transforming their shared obstacle into an opportunity for growth. Emma's face paled slightly, but there was a spark of determination in her eyes that indicated she was ready to share the truth of her burdens. The potential for a richer relationship hung tantalizingly in the air, but woven between the confessions lay risks that could alter everything. With each layer they uncovered, Ruth felt the stakes rise. How much could they handle? How much truth would emerge from this moment? Just as Emma took a deep breath to delve deeper into her story, a loud crash echoed from outside, shaking the cafe's glass front. An instant fury of noise rippled through the room, pulling their focus toward the commotion. The unexpected interruption sent chills coursing through Ruth. The moment had been poised to unveil deeper truths, but now everything hung in balance. What she feared most suddenly loomed larger than ever. Was this fate refusing to let them embark on their path of understanding, or merely a distraction from the truth? The weight of unanswered questions lingered heavily. the air electric with tension as they turned to see the chaos unfolding outside, reminding Ruth that, like life, no revelation comes without a fight. Ruth's heart raced as she turned toward the cafe's glass entrance. The shattering sound seemed like a prelude to something more, amplifying the doubts swirling in her mind. Was this the moment they had been aiming for, a chance to embrace vulnerability and foster connection? Or was it meant to shatter everything they had built so far? Jake's face paled as he looked to Emma, who appeared equally shaken. The sudden chaos outside was more than a mere distraction. It threatened to derail their fragile conversation about revelations, about healing. Ruth inhaled deeply, forcing herself to focus, to ground herself in the present. "Stay here," Ruth said, her voice steadier than she felt. She wasn't sure what awaited them outside, but she needed to maintain control. This was more than a moment of personal reckoning. It was about creating a safe space for Jake and Emma. With hesitant steps, Ruth made her way toward the door, her pulse quickening with each stride. The afternoon sunlight now illuminated swirling dust and debris, and the calm facade of the cafe shattered in the storm of anxiety folding over them. A group of people had gathered, pointing and murmuring. As she stepped outside, Ruth's determination solidified into an anchor. She needed to understand what had happened, to ensure her son's safety, and to keep Emma grounded in this tumultuous reality. Ruth's eyes widened as she took in the sight. A delivery truck had collided with a lamppost just down the street, a chaotic pileup of metal and mangled parts. The driver had managed to escape, but the aftermath sent tremors through the crowd. "Are you okay?" Ruth called out, instinctively pushing her way toward the scene. Each footfall reinforced a quiet resolve that surged within her. This could be the point at which they either succumbed to despair or wrestled power from calamity. Jake appeared at her side, his expression conflicted, fear and concern washing over him. "Mom, be careful!" he shouted, but his words felt distant, muffled by the sudden cacophony surrounding them. Ruth glanced back at the cafe. Emma stood at the door, pale but watching, her own apprehensions mirrored in her eyes. This was about more than the external chaos. It brought forth the internal conflicts they faced together. She was not just protecting Jake, she was guiding them through an emotional storm. "Let's help," Ruth urged, turning her focus back to the scene of the accident. She felt it then, a surge of purpose. The chaos outside mirrored their lives, and just as they navigated the unknown depths of their relationship, so too could they help. Together, they moved toward the gathering crowd, urging everyone to step back. Ruth's voice, fierce and composed, cut through the clamor. "Everyone, give him space! Call for help!" Her heart beat with the rhythm of urgency, spurring Jake to spring into action. Amid the chaos, as bystanders fell into panic and speculation, Ruth caught a glimpse of Emma pushing through the crowd, determination etched in her features. That moment crystallized Ruth's understanding of their shared goal. This was not only about confronting truths, but also about cultivating strength through vulnerability. As the minutes stretched, a thought began to brew in the back of Ruth's mind. What would Emma reveal amidst this turmoil? Would her bravery stand as a testament to the shared struggles they might face on their path forward? The sound of sirens echoed, a savior in the storm. But within that brief pause, Ruth felt a connection solidify amongst them. Hurt, revelations, growth, interconnectedness. The rescue workers arrived, and as they began to assess the situation, Ruth's resolve matched the intensity of what lay ahead. She turned to Jake, his eyes brimming with questions. "Let's head back inside," she said, her voice firm with newfound purpose. "We need to talk to Emma." In that moment, Ruth's determination felt misty yet strong, a commitment to understanding and confronting the complexity of life's truths. But as they moved back toward the cafe, the shattering of glass echoed in her mind. What else would surface now that the facade had broken? What new revelations awaited to be uncovered amidst the ashes of disruption? As Ruth stepped back into the cafe, a wave of warmth enveloped her, contrasting sharply with the chaos that lingered just outside. The atmosphere inside felt suddenly heavy, cloaked in unspoken words waiting to spill forth. She could still hear the distant wail of sirens, but here, within the walls of the cafe, it was the quiet tension between them that thrummed. Emma stood where Ruth had left her, a statue of resolve slowly wavering. Her gaze darted nervously between Ruth and Jake, her thoughts clearly racing. What had begun as a day filled with the promise of connection now felt clouded by uncertainty. "Are you okay?" Ruth asked, her tone softening as she stepped closer, the resolve in her voice tempered by concern. Yeah, I just needed a moment," Emma replied, her voice barely above a whisper. A frisson of recognition coursed through Ruth. She saw in Emma a reflection of her own struggles. This young woman was not just Jake's fiancée. She was a vessel of potential, capable of growth and self-discovery, just as Ruth was. The entire situation outside had stirred feelings of vulnerability in them all. "We can't just pretend everything's fine, can we?" Jake finally spoke, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. "Especially not after that." "No, we can't," Ruth said, realizing needing to bridge the gap between them. That moment outside was a wake-up call. It showed us we're not in control, but we have the choice of how we respond. The truth hung in the air, stinging like the acrid smell of burnt rubber. Subtly, Ruth felt the weight of her past decisions pressing in. She wanted both Jake and Emma to see that courage could emerge from even the most uncomfortable spaces. She reflected on her own trajectory in the wake of the divorce, how she had navigated those rough waters, sometimes blindly, sometimes bravely. "I've been feeling lost," Emma confessed, her voice trembling slightly. "I wanted to be perfect for both of you, but today has shown me I can't be." Ruth took a step forward, her heart aching for the young woman before her. "You don't have to be perfect. We just need to be honest." Jake leaned in, curiosity etched on his features. "What do you mean?" "Understanding ourselves means accepting our flaws. Today made me realize that facing the chaos can lead to real growth," Ruth elaborated, words flowing with a newfound confidence. "Sure, strife has been a part of our lives, but it's the way we respond to that strife that defines us." She watched as both Jake and Emma absorbed her words, the tension between them seeming to loosen. At that moment, they were no longer separate entities trying to tiptoe around sensitive topics. They were a trio navigating their unique pathways, flawed yet bound. The revelation flickered to a heady crescendo. Emotional truths lay beneath Emma's surface, waiting to be unlocked. Would she reveal what she had kept hidden, campaign uncertainties buried beneath layered expectations? Or would they risk the fragile thread that connected them by confronting that unexpressed fear? "Ruth, I need to tell you something," Emma finally said, her voice steadying with purpose. "I've been keeping something from you and Jake, and I can't hold it back any longer." The air thickened with anticipation, and while Ruth's heart thudded in her chest, ready for any outcome, she maintained her composure and focus. "Go on," she urged. The cafe, once a space of comfort and normalcy, transformed into a crucible where hidden truths would emerge. Something monumental was upon them, a tipping point that could plunge their relationships into uncertain waters, but it was also an opportunity for rebirth. As Emma opened her mouth to speak, Ruth's mind raced with possibilities. Could it be a revelation that would change everything? Would their journey together shatter or illuminate? The tension was palpable, standing on the knife's edge of transformation. What new understanding awaited them in the revelations that could follow, and how would it reshape the fragile connections they had begun to rebuild? As Emma inhaled deeply, the weight of unspoken words hung around them like a taut wire ready to snap. Ruth's heart raced, and she felt the energy shift, taut with anticipation. Emma's gaze bore into Ruth as if searching for validation, relief, or perhaps strength. Ruth sensed that the moment had come both for Emma and for herself, a suspension of judgment where they could embrace honesty. "I've been keeping a secret," Emma began, her voice steadier now. "One that has made me question everything." Ruth nodded, encouraging her to go on, her mind swirling with empathy. She could already see pieces of the puzzle fit together, the uncertainties, the hesitations. "We're listening," she said, her tone firm but gentle. "It's about family," Emma replied, vulnerable yet resolute. "My family. They've been pressuring me about this marriage. They want the fairy tale wedding, the perfect life. But I don't know if that's what I want." Ruth's brain processed each word, recognizing the conflict simmering beneath Emma's surface. "What do you want?" she asked, not as a judgment, but as a genuine inquiry. Emma looked away, her fingers curling tightly around her mug. "I want to explore who I really am before I become someone else's idea of a wife. I admire what you did after your divorce, Ruth. You took strength from your experience to build a new life. I'm terrified of making the wrong choice." It was as though Emma was carving out a safe space for herself, revealing not just worries, but possibilities. Ruth remembered her own fear, the gaping uncertainty that loomed after she chose to leave her marriage. Suddenly, these shared experiences forged an invisible bond, entwining them in the pursuit of self-awareness. "That's brave of you," Ruth said softly, resonating with Emma's journey. "The hardest part is confronting those expectations, but it's also the only way to discover who you truly are." Jake shifted uncomfortably, the silence not settling well with him. "Are you saying you're not sure you want to marry me?" His voice quivered slightly, an unexpected confession that echoed the vulnerability present in the air. Emma's face fell, closing up as the tension ratcheted up again. "I love you, but I don't know if I can commit to a life that feels predetermined." Ruth felt an internal surge. The moment of honesty had brought additional pain, but offered so much more. It was a crossroads where three lives intertwined, messy with emotional truth. Being honest about what you feel doesn't equate to abandoning your love for Jake. "It's about aligning what you truly want with your commitments," Ruth said, threading her voice through the impending storm. Jake's expression softened, the clenched fist uncoiling as he absorbed Emma's words. What if we took a step back, focused on understanding each other better? On being okay with uncertainty for a while? Ruth admired the shift in him, realizing that this moment could be a turning point for them all. They were no longer just grappling with the fallout of the chaos outside. They were facing the internal chaos of their lives, too. "Perhaps we could explore what freedom means in relationships," Ruth suggested, seizing the moment to position the discussion toward self-discovery. "It doesn't mean abandoning your dreams together. Rather, it's an opportunity to redefine them." Emma's eyes sparkled with a hint of relief, yet the undercurrents of fear lingered. Jake seemed thoughtful, how his next question could weigh heavy. What does that look like? Being real with ourselves and with each other? The cafe now felt like a sanctuary for all three, a refuge for vulnerabilities to unfold. Ruth pondered how they could shape these revelations into personal growth. Would Emma lean into this newfound awareness? Would Jake embrace the uncertainty that came with love? As they exchanged glances, Ruth realized the evolution of each person was intertwined, still fragile, but more resilient than ever. Would this moment shift the trajectory of their lives, blurring the lines between personal desires and collective happiness? Emma's expression shifted again, as if she was on the verge of yet another revelation. "There's something else I've been meaning to tell you, and this might change everything." The air thickened once more, and Ruth felt the pulse of their shared journey urging her forward on the edge of a transformative truth that could redirect their paths entirely. Would they embrace it, or succumb to the familiar fear of the unknown? Emma's sudden shift in demeanor captured Ruth's full attention. The cafe hummed around them, but within the intimate cocoon of their conversation, it felt as if time had stilled. Emma's lips parted, but for a moment no sound emerged, as if the weight of her next words was almost too heavy to bear. Ruth's pulse quickened. She sensed they were standing on the precipice of something monumental. "I've been thinking about my career too," Emma finally confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've poured so much of myself into being the perfect daughter and fiancée. But where does my own identity start?" Ruth leaned forward, her heart swelling with both empathy and pride. She recalled her own struggles, the awakening that followed her marriage's collapse, where she had begun to reclaim her life and her ambitions. "Exploring that identity is just as crucial as navigating your relationship," she assured Emma. "What are the dreams that belong solely to you?" Emma's fingers released their grip on the mug, nerveless in the wake of this vulnerability. "I used to aspire to be an environmental scientist. I had plans to travel and research sustainable practices, but I let them fade away." Her voice thickened with regret. "Now I just feel like I'm living someone else's life." "Why not reignite those ambitions?" Ruth proposed, mindful of Emma's fragility. "Taking the steps toward your goals may be the key to your personal growth and clarity about your relationship. A fulfilled person contributes more authentically to a partnership." Jake had been listening intently, his expression a mixture of surprise and contemplation. "So you're saying you want to pursue this on your own? Even if it means stepping back from us?" His voice trembled, layering the air with urgency. "I don't want to lose you, Jake," Emma said, frustration and affection spilling into her voice. "But I can't ignore this feeling of being lost. If you truly care about me, you'll understand." Ruth watched as Jake processed these words, his features twisting between concern and dawning realization. "What if I want to support you in this?" he asked, a flicker of gentleness breaking through the tension. "How would that look?" "Maybe. I need some time just to reconnect with that lost part of myself, focus on my own goals, and find out what makes me whole," Emma admitted, the weight of truth causing her shoulders to sag, even as enlightenment began to spark in her eyes. Ruth felt the swell of pride again, recognizing the seeds of empowerment taking root within Emma. Yet, a whisper of hesitation pursued her thoughts. Would this newfound clarity unravel their relationships, or would it strengthen them? "Have you thought about pursuing a course or finding a mentor in the field again?" Ruth probed gently. "Creating a plan could help you reignite those dreams." A flicker of possibility crossed Emma's face as she pondered their suggestions. But beneath the surface, doubts remained. What if I uncover feelings I can't come back from? What if digging deeper leads to choices that scare me more than the right ones? Ruth caught the edge of fear threading through Emma's words and braced herself for a deeper revelation. This was not just about aspirations, but about self-exploration, a fundamental confrontation with the expectations that had defined Emma's life thus far. "Facing fear is daunting," Ruth replied, her voice firm. "But swirling in uncertainty doesn't mean you're losing yourself. It could mean discovering a version of you that's been waiting to rise. It's a journey of clarity, albeit challenging." Jake nodded slowly, as if contemplating the expansive possibility that lay before them. "What if we make this easier? What if we agree to prioritize our personal growth while being committed to supporting each other through it?" "What if?" Emma echoed quietly, wonder igniting behind her eyes. Could this true partnership allow for both independence and unity? Suddenly, Emma's expression deepened as she leaned closer, a flicker of fear and hope mingled in her eyes. "There's one more thing. I might have found someone I want to reach out to about a project, someone who could help me, but it's complex." Ruth's heartbeat quickened as she felt the tension spike again, realizing that this decision too could alter everything. "What do you mean by complex?" As the atmosphere thickened anew with anticipation and uncertainty, Ruth sensed they were circling the brink of yet another turning point, a truth that could both liberate and entangle them further. Would Emma seize the momentum and challenge the status quo, or retreat into safety once more? Emma felt a mixture of excitement and dread at the prospect of reaching out to someone who could guide her career. The complexities of her emotions swirled in her mind like a tempest, and she fought to organize her thoughts as she stared at her uneaten pastry. Her name is Dr. Alicia Grant. She's a prominent environmental scientist and runs a nonprofit organization focused on sustainable practices. I met her at a seminar last year. I thought she was impressive then, and now, well, she could perhaps help reinstate my ambitions. Ruth noted the way Emma's eyes lit up at the mere mention of Dr. Grant. There was a spark that promised renewal, but just as swiftly, it was suffocated by doubt. That's incredible, Em. It sounds like she's the perfect person to guide you. What's holding you back? Emma faltered, wringing her hands together. What if I reach out and she sees me as just another lost person? What if I can't live up to her expectations? The familiar weight of self-doubt threatened to crush her spirit, but in that moment, Ruth saw a flicker of conflict, a desire to overcome. You won't know unless you try, Ruth encouraged gently. You've already taken a massive step in recognizing your need for growth. Connecting with someone like Dr. Grant could be the catalyst for not just your career, but for your life. Jake chimed in thoughtfully. It's normal to feel vulnerable when taking a leap like this, but challenging yourself is a part of growth, right? His expression showed both caution and support, urging Emma to embrace uncertainty rather than fearing it. Maybe, Emma murmured, feeling both their encouragement and her lingering fears fill the air. It comes back to what I truly want. Do I want to become the environmental scientist whom I once dreamed of being, or is that just nostalgia? Ruth noticed Emma grappling with that thought, and it reminded her of her own battles with reinvention. Nostalgia has a place, but it shouldn't be your anchor, she said softly. It could serve as a guiding star instead, illuminating your path forward. Ask yourself what gets you excited about environmental science. Emma's brow furrowed, her mind swirling again. The impact, the possibility of creating change for the planet, of contributing to something bigger than myself. I used to feel that fire. With each word, her resolve began to rekindle, and Ruth felt a surge of hope. Why not channel that passion? Ruth suggested. Frame your communication with Dr. Grant not only to seek guidance, but also to express your genuine interest. Authenticity resonates more than you know. Just as Emma nodded, the flood of hesitation crashed over her again, silencing the growing excitement. But then I'll have to face the reality of my choices. If I start this journey, there's no going back. And what if it leads me away from who I've always been? The final words hung heavily between them, a sharp reminder of the fear Emma carried like a second skin. It was at that moment Ruth realized that there was more at stake than mere ambition. This was about Emma redefining her identity in a way that felt foreign and unsettling to her. I won't pretend that I know where this journey leads, Ruth replied, her voice steady. But you owe it to yourself to explore it. Embrace the uncertainty. Sometimes losing a piece of who you've been is the first step in finding out who you really are. As a silence enveloped the three of them, Emma sensed a shift in the room. Grounded by Ruth's support and Jake's concern, she breathed deeply, her resolve hardening with each pulse of her heart. Could her fears from the past open new doors to the future? I think I'll reach out to Dr. Grant, she declared, the tremor in her voice barely masking her determination. Just as Jake began to smile, Emma hesitated. But what if that connection shifts everything? What if I lose the comfort I've built? Her eyes darted between them, uncertainty clashing with hope. Ruth leaned closer, her expression serious. The reality of growth is that it often requires dismantling your comfort zone. It's not just a choice, it's a process. As the weight of Emma's decision hung over them, Ruth recognized they were on the brink of monumental change, one that could unravel the fabric of their relationships or stitch it together more strongly than before. Are you ready to take that risk? Ruth asked, her heart racing, the potential for transformation palpable. Emma's lips pressed together, her brow furrowed as she struggled with the implications of her next steps. The air thickened with tension, both exhilarating and nerve-wracking, as she decided whether to leap into the unknown or retreat back into the safety of the past. Would she find the courage to push beyond the fear, or would she succumb to the security of stability one last time? The morning after her revelation, Emma woke up restless. The sun filtered through her curtains, a soft reminder of the choice she had made. Today she would send an email to Dr. Grant. The simple act felt monumental, a declaration that she was willing to confront her self-doubt, even if it loomed large. She turned on her laptop, her fingers hovering over the keyboard, battling a flurry of what-ifs and a wave of anxiety. She focused on the message she had in mind. Every word had to convey sincerity while masking her insecurities. How could she sound confident, yet not pretentious? As she began typing, her inner critic reared its head. "Dear Dr. Grant," she wrote, hesitated, and promptly deleted. She considered each option, weighed by the relentless inner dialogue that questioned her worthiness. The familiar weight of doubt clouded her vision. What will she think of me? Am I imposing? Emma took a deep breath, an attempt to clear the chaos swirling in her mind. She decided to pivot from perfectionism to authenticity. Dr. Grant's resume was impressive, yes, but today was about Emma's journey and her passion for environmental science. Shifting her focus toward her motivations, why she cared about the planet, about creating vast changes, pushed her forward, untangling her thoughts, one letter at a time. After several more attempts, she finally typed out a message highlighting her past experiences and her desire for mentorship. I would love to hear your thoughts on beginning a career focused on sustainable environmental practices, she concluded, hitting send before she could reconsider. A wave of relief washed over her, quickly followed by a surge of fear. Fear that she had been impulsive, that she had opened her life, her path, to someone who might see her shortcomings laid bare. But within that fear was an inkling of hope, the kind that kept hold of her earlier ambition. After dozens of moments spent lost in self-reflection, she realized controversy fueled evolution. What if this was a path to redefine her potential, to reclaim parts of herself she had brushed aside in pursuit of stability? The day dragged on slowly as Emma compulsively checked her inbox, every vibration of her phone eliciting a jolt of anxiety. Each time it wasn't Dr. Grant's reply, she felt a twinge of disappointment, coupled with self-reproach. Had her email really communicated her passion? Was she just waiting in vain for validation? It was during dinner, seated beside Ruth and Jake, that the tension peaked. They chatted about trivial things, but Emma barely listened. Instead, she faced the weight of her decision and its ripples on her future. Do you ever feel like you've taken a step too far? She blurted, the words breaking free before she could stop them. Ruth paused, fork in midair. What do you mean? I reached out to Dr. Grant today, Emma confessed, the vulnerability spilling into the room. And now I feel exposed. What if I fail? What if she sees me as a fraud? Jake nodded knowingly. Failure is just another step on the way to success, Emma. It's how you respond that determines whether the step will teach you something or keep you paralyzed with fear. Ruth smiled. You've already shown bravery simply by reaching out. Don't underestimate that. It's a step toward growth. For the first time that evening, Emma felt a resurgence of her old spark, buoyed by her friend's unwavering support. Yet as doubt ebbed, another thought surfaced. What if Dr. Grant didn't respond? The night closed in, a silence enveloping them as she descended deeper into self-reflection. What lay beyond the email? Would it shake her foundation, or could it propel her to consider a future she had almost believed was beyond reach? As they cleared the table and returned to their shared living space, Emma's thoughts drifted back to the words of Ruth. Embracing discomfort was essential, but how far was she willing to lean into uncertainty? Would she tread lightly or plunge into the depths of her aspirations? The question lingered in her mind, the tension palpable when suddenly her phone buzzed on the table. She froze, heart racing, as she recognized the notification's source, a response from Dr. Grant. What awaited her on the screen could either solidify her path or shatter the fragile confidence she had just begun to build. Which direction would her life take with one click? Emma's heart pounded as she stared at her phone. The excitement of receiving a response from Dr. Grant clashed with the anxiety of uncertainty about what the message might hold. It was a small moment that felt impossibly large, and she realized this was not just an email. This represented a potential turning point in her life. With bated breath, she swiped the screen to read Dr. Grant's reply. Dear Emma, thank you for reaching out. I was impressed by your dedication to environmental sustainability. I believe we all have the potential to create significant change, and I would love to discuss your aspirations further. How about we meet for coffee next week? Tears momentarily blurred her vision, a rush of relief washing over her. She wants to meet, Emma exclaimed, a feeling of exhilaration flooding her veins. The tension that had wrapped around her heart like a vice started to dissipate, replaced with a budding excitement she thought she might have lost forever. Ruth and Jake shared the moment with her, their smiles reflecting the joy that consumed her. See? This is exactly what I meant when I said you're capable of taking leaps, Ruth said, a note of pride resonating in her voice. Now it's your chance to share your journey and vision. That's amazing, Jake added, beaming with encouragement. You've already taken the first step. Just think about everything you can learn. Emma felt a shift within her. The doubts that once threatened to anchor her into a life of uncertainty were fading. Instead, hope began to breed confidence. Meeting Dr. Grant didn't just represent an opportunity to explore her aspirations. It also signified her willingness to confront her own fears. I think I'm beginning to realize something, Emma said, her voice steady now. I don't have to do this alone. This journey, whether it leads to success or failure, is mine to navigate. But I can embrace the uncertainty with help from both of you. This marked a significant moment of clarity and growth for her. No longer was she standing in the shadows of everyone else's expectations. She was stepping into the light of her own aspirations. The heaviness of her once imposed identity lifted, replaced with a renewed sense of purpose that propelled her forward. Let's celebrate this milestone, Ruth suggested, as if reading Emma's mind. How about we go out to dinner tomorrow to mark your first step toward the future? Yes, Jake chimed in, the excitement palpable in his tone. And we can talk about how you'll approach Dr. Grant, brainstorm ideas, anything you want to bounce off us. Emma smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude for the support surrounding her. They were a team, one that had weathered chaos together and emerged stronger. I'd love that. It feels incredible to know I'll have your support as I move forward. The next day dawned with possibilities. As Emma prepared for her meeting with Dr. Grant, she felt a surge of confidence that replaced any remnants of fear. Each moment spent analyzing her goals bore fruit, and she arrived at the cafe with anticipation coursing through her. During her conversation with Dr. Grant, Emma opened up about her dreams, her passion for environmental science, and her desire to enact tangible change. Dr. Grant listened intently, offering insights that inspired Emma further. They exchanged ideas about upcoming projects, sustainability practices, and the challenges they both faced in the industry. Bravery lies in knowing your worth and your unique contributions, Dr. Grant said, her words resonating with Emma deeply. You have the potential to make a significant impact, but you also must be open to direction and collaboration. Emma left the meeting not just with newfound contacts, but with a solid plan that included actionable steps toward her ambition. This was her personal victory, a leap into autonomy that unveiled her capabilities. Returning home, Emma felt the weight of her journey lift as she shared details with Ruth and Jake. I can create a project proposal, work alongside Dr. Grant, and explore internships. I feel alive, she said, her face glowing with renewed conviction. It became clear to Emma that the choices she had made, the dare to confront fears, and the willingness to embrace her true self, had forged a new path. Reflecting on her growth, Emma realized her journey was ripe with poignant lessons about clarity and courage. The fear she once felt over stepping into the unknown transformed into a deep-seated confidence built through genuine support and resilience. She understood that transformation was not just about ambition, but also the community that uplifts you when the tides grow rough. Now more than ever, Emma knew that achieving her dreams was within her grasp. It was a challenge she felt ready to conquer. In a moment of reflection and gratitude, Emma turned to Ruth and Jake. "Thank you for standing by me during this. Your belief in me has fueled this change." "You achieved this on your own," Ruth replied, eyes sparkling with pride. "You discovered strength within yourself we always knew was there." With this knowledge firmly in her heart, Emma stood on the precipice of her future, ready to leap into whatever came next. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.